Hello, and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And this is Mark Florence.
And today we're talking about the TV show Servant. This is a show that premiered on Apple TV Plus, and we finally got around to watching it. And spoiler alert, we enjoyed it. And that's not a spoiler, actually. We'll get into real spoilers in a little bit, but let's just give our general thoughts about this show. 10 episodes, M. Night Shyamalan produced. What do you think, Mark?
I really enjoyed it. I think just knowing that M. Night did it, kind of like left you guessing the whole time, like what twist or turn it was going to take. So I think he did a great job.
I agree. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the acting was great. I think the twists and surprises left me guessing the entire time, and apparently it's been renewed for season 2, and so that might be a bit of a spoiler that it's not a one-off and not everything gets wrapped up in a nice little bow by the end of the 10th episode, but I'm not even mad about it. I'm actually looking forward to it. So if you don't have Apple TV, we've watched a couple good things on there, and I know if you're a Stephen King fan, Lacey's Story is coming out within the next few months, and so that's another thing to look forward to and become a subscriber for. And also Apple TV Plus, you can sponsor us because we're plugging you right now.
Yeah, good luck with that one. Rupert Grint is in this show. Ron Weasley. I mean, he's coming out of his what do you call it? Cast type? What do you call it? Typecast. So yeah, it's nice to see him in a different role as like this brother guy who just like loves wine. And that's another thing I loved about this. They have this immaculate wine cellar with all these wines, and they're just constantly drinking all these awesome wines.
And I think they tend to be red wine, which is your jam.
Yeah, totally. Like literally this is like my dream cellar.
Like a lot of M. Night's things, or maybe all of his movies, tend to take place in Pennsylvania somewhere. This TV show, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I had the absolute pleasure, honor of being able to visit Philly within this past year before all this COVID business, and I freaking loved it. And if you know me, you know I love Gritty, the Philadelphia Flyers mascot.
Kelly does love Gritty. I am subjected to a lot of Gritty videos and gritty Twitter content. But it's awesome, so I really enjoy it.
I mean, who doesn't love Gritty? If you don't love Gritty, like, do you have a soul?
You do not have a soul if you don't appreciate Gritty. No.
Now, we're going to get into some spoilers. If you haven't watched this show yet, we recommend it 100%. But if you haven't watched it, maybe you don't want to be spoiled, so don't listen. Now, the premise of this show, which, you might have seen just in advertising within the past year, is that a nanny gets hired for a couple to watch a baby, but the baby is a doll. And it's not like The Boy. It's a different twist than that. Like that movie starring Maggie from The Walking Dead. It is different. It's a fake baby, but why? And we don't find out for a very long time.
So if you're a nanny and you walk into the situation, I mean, 99 out of 100 people are just going to get the H out of there. But this Leanne just takes it in stride and is completely like all in, because the mom, I can't remember her name offhand,
Dorothy
is in complete belief that this doll is a real baby, and like she's been through some miscarriages and stuff, so it's like very important that that's what they kind of lead you to believe at the beginning. So it's very important that you believe that she believes that this baby is real.
Speaking of Dorothy, it's played by the amazing actress Lauren Ambrose, who was the sister on 6 Feet Under, which is another show I recommend. It's an HBO show. It's old now. Peter Krause, Michael C. Hall, lots of amazing people on that show. And that's where I recognized her from. So a little bit of a side note, sidetrack, non sequitur. Well, not really a non sequitur, but the reason I watched 6 Feet Under is because I read on Twitter, people agreed that the greatest, most gut-wrenching, heart-stabbing finale of all time, TV finale, was 6 Feet Under. And I'm like, well, I absolutely need to watch this show then, because I love gut-wrenching, heart-stabbing, bawl my eyes out content. And P.S., it delivered. I absolutely bawled my eyes out. I remember I was watching it. We were staying overnight at your mom's house, and I watched the finale of 6 Feet Under, and everyone came to check on me because I was sobbing so loudly. It was so good.
I don't remember that, so you must sob loudly a lot.
I do. Guess what? Like, the kids come to check on me often because I do sob loudly. I did it 2 nights ago when we were watching someone, I won't spoil this, someone die on our Walking Dead rewatch. So you can probably guess who. Campbell and I are working our way through. We're almost ready for the October premiere, but my Lord, people die and I sob. So Lauren Ambrose, she's a treasure. I recognize her. I love her. The rest of this cast, though, is impeccable. I mean, you mentioned Rupert Grint, who plays Julian, and I'm not familiar with the actress who plays Leanne or the husband who plays Sean, but everyone's great.
So he looked familiar, and he's in a Black Mirror episode. And this is super cliche of me, but this reminded me a lot of a Black Mirror episode, like a long one. But anyway,
it was the one where like they had the contacts in where they could like retrace their memories or like play memories for each other on a TV. And yeah.
So he was also in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Fantastic Four, and Prince of Persia. But he looked familiar. And now I'm seeing that he's older than me, but he looks like he's like way younger than me, so that makes me sad.
I don't think he looks way younger than you. Mark, you're not giving yourself credit for how young you look. Now, okay, something about his character. He is a chef, and he makes, I don't know if this is his bit. Dorothy calls him a molecular gastronomist, which is like Marcel on Top Chef, if anybody's a Top Chef fan. And we loved Marcel. Well, I did. Did you love him, Mark?
I respected his craft, yes.
So anyway, I love Marcel. Shout out to Top Chef fans. But this guy, at least in this 10-episode arc, he is making disgusting things palatable. And I say palatable in quotation marks because he makes lobster ice cream. He's making like eels, and they there's this whole plot line with like where he has to pound the eel's head to kill it, and it's still alive. Here's the big kicker, spoiler alert, in the final episode, he ends up cooking the freaking placenta from the baby's birth and making a croquembouche tower, and he calls it, he's like, oh, it's liver, it's a family recipe. And people are eating it, and they're eating a freaking placenta. I mean, sorry, no offense if you ate your placenta or if you planted it or whatever, but we didn't do anything with our placentae.
Good plural of placenta there. Yeah, I mean, feeding unknowing guests the placenta at the baptism party, that's next level, just weirdness. Especially
that's true horror.
That's true horror, especially when the baby, I don't know if I can say this right now, but I'm going to. The baby actually died because it was left in a hot car too long, and that's why they went to the doll. And then somehow or another, the nanny, the servant came, and they had a new baby, which was never fully explained, but we think it's some kind of weird witchcraft thing. and then you actually have a baptism and you feed the placenta to your guests.
I mean, this is, like, do not feed me any sort of, like, crazy.
Well, I don't need to be, like, asking a weird question, but you're a vegetarian, so does, like, eating a placenta, like, qualify under that?
I think so, because guess what? Like, the reason I don't eat meat and animals is because it's kind of disgusting, and I also would not eat my own placenta, so I definitely would not want to eat someone else's.
Yeah, and it was just like building up, like the weird things he was cooking, the eel. He'd make crickets. He had that big, weird, huge piece of meat delivered to the house, which ended up like rotting just on the counter. Yeah, he was constantly making these crazy dishes. And when Leanne moved in, she had these crosses up, and he ended up like destroying them because he was not in favor of everything. And he started getting these weird like splinters everywhere, and then he lost his sense of taste, which was just so huge for him with his profession.
And so we saw Leanne, somehow cursing these people. She would write a name in her Bible, and she wrote Dorothy's name in the Bible after she heard Dorothy and Sean having sex, which is like a 100% fine, natural thing for a married couple to do. But she was so offended. She wrote Dorothy's name in the Bible, and the next morning she had all sorts of acne, and she, of course, has to, appear on screen because she's a TV journalist, and that was like the worst case scenario. Also, Leanne ended up food poisoning Dorothy, and that was like disgusting. But it was all this ploy to try to get her to remember when the baby died in the car, because there was like fish in there, and she wanted a disgusting smell, and then she kept setting off the car alarm, and this is like terrorism.
Yeah, it got a little weird there with like all possessive and like judgmental Leanne got of Dorothy, especially when she found out what happened, and the whole thing was off from the beginning. What's the husband's name? Sean ended up putting the nanny cam thing in this little hole in the closet where he could like see what she was doing like at 24 hours a day in her room.
But actually, I just thought about it. It never came back into play. So, and I'm like, when she started flogging herself, like whipping herself, I'm like, I wonder if Sean is watching this, because that's pretty weird, but it never came back into play. I mean, season 2, I guess, right?
Season 2, I mean, yeah, but she seemingly left at the end with her weird cult of people, but
what I'm saying is they might review the tapes.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, just, I don't know, I just like the way this whole thing made me feel uneasy, on edge, kind of uncertain to which way it was going, so bravo.
It is currently 84% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and initially, Mark is like, well, I don't know if I want to watch it. And I'm like, guess what? I think you should watch it because it's highly revered, and M. Night is involved. And I know all of his stuff isn't great, but typically I love his stuff. And he's an executive producer. So here's a fun fact. The team for this show was sued by a woman in January, claiming that this was too similar to a movie that she already wrote and released, but the case was thrown out, the judge saying, like, it wasn't similar enough. And so, I mean, I hope justice prevailed and they didn't actually steal this idea. They both claimed, the M. Night and the showrunner, writer, claimed that they had never seen her movie, which, I mean, it's fair. I mean, maybe... I hope that that's true. So, but just shout out to that and research it if you're interested in checking out that woman's film, because it's a great premise.
I don't think M. Night would steal an idea. Like, it might be similar to her idea by chance, but he didn't. I don't think he made a cameo that we saw Unless he was the mailman or delivery person, because you really couldn't see their face.
That's true. We kept waiting for that cameo because we know he loves a good cameo. So, other moments that you were creeped out by, appreciated. I mean, there were so many for me. I could go on and on. What do you think, Mark?
Well, she ends up going on a date with like his sous chef or like his clerk. They go bowling and then they have like an awkward exchange where she wants to kiss him after and he's just kind of not feeling it. That was kind of an uncomfortable scene, and then she like kisses herself in the mirror after. And she was very awkward. You know, a great job by the actress.
You know, they styled her perfectly because I'm sure she's beautiful, and she was beautiful in the show, but I'm sure could be very glamorous looking, but she was very plain, just hair straight, parted in the middle, seemingly not an ounce of makeup. I'm sure there's a ton of makeup actually on screen, but every outfit she wore was very old-fashioned. She only wore dresses. She only wore flat shoes, you know, when she was working, and she loved that baby. And so the question is it her baby? Is it a baby that she conjured somehow because she's actually a witch? Is it a baby from the community? Because we find out, big spoiler alert at the end, she's part of a cult. Like, what the F, Mark?
And then she, at the beginning and like through the beginning to the middle, she only ate Campbell's soup, tomato soup. And it was just like this weird deal. So maybe that was something from her cult days coming back. But when the guy lost his sense of taste, he had to rely on her to taste like the lobster ice cream and various dishes to be like what is this missing? And like she said, chocolate for the lobster ice cream. And so she was like actually had a good palate.
There you go. And then he decided serve it in a chocolate bomb or something he called it, and garnish with lemon, and like he figured it all out because of her. And so, yeah, I mean, that was, if you know me, again, I love chef stuff. So it was a fun thing also, which was like, ugh, so sad. But Dorothy was left alone with the infant while Sean was off filming this show in LA, which was similar to Chopped, but they didn't call it Chopped. And I shout out to the actors in that scene because they were amazing and it was funny.
I was just going to say that, like, one of the rare, like, funny moments from the show was when he was a judge on those cooking shows, and like how I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, you feel like you don't even want to be cooking anymore, so you have to throw your knife or something. Stupid.
It was so good because they just got to the heart of all of that. And anyway, Dorothy was doing it alone, and guess what? I get it. Like I remember those early days of having an infant, and you are super tired. Like you're not on a set schedule. She was off of work. You've got a lot to do. She's got a house to take care of. She did the grocery shopping with the baby. She brought in all the groceries. She left the door open to try to remind herself to go out and get the baby. The wind closed the door. She set up a fan in the baby's room because it's so hot. She set up the fan, but she didn't look in the crib. She went and fell asleep on the couch. Finally, hours later, and they showed the temperature. It was over 100 degrees. She goes up to check on the baby in the crib, and he's not there. And then it's this moment, it's a gut punch, and it's confusing because they show after Leanne has food poisoned her and she's thrown up, they show Dorothy stumbling down the stairs, and you're like, oh, she's feeling good enough to be up. But it's actually a flashback of her going out to get the now dead baby from the car and bring him in, and she bathed a dead baby, and she put to sleep a dead baby, and she dressed a dead baby for 4 days until Sean came back. I actually, Rupert Grint, Julian, discovered him first, and my Lord, it is so dark. And I can't even imagine. But I know it happens. I mean, it happens every summer we hear about it. Ugh, what a nightmare and true horror again.
That was a very uncomfortable scene, like seeing her like with the dead baby, and like she's just basically in shock, and like she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't want to deal with it. So she just like totally pretends like nothing happened. So it's just like, wow.
And I compared it to, here's another spoiler alert, Hereditary. If you haven't seen it, plug your ears. But the brother goes home and pretends nothing happened. So unplug your ears. But, like sometimes you just, that's how you mentally cope. You compartmentalize and pretend like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah, not to change the subject, but I was just thinking, Leanne's in the basement when like the floor like cracks open. Like, was that real? Like, what was that all about?
I don't know if that was real or in her mind, but then they later reference like a Bible passage about the earth opening up and swallowing people who deserve to go to hell. And they talk about, the crickets appearing when something bad's about to happen. And, he got all those crickets for a recipe, but then they keep appearing in her bedroom. And so it's like, wait, what? That's disgusting. And also her aunt and uncle are creepy AF.
Very creepy. I like the way they like introduced them into it, especially the uncle. At a few times, I felt like the uncle was a bit like overacting or unbelievable, but that was like my only thing. But yeah, he was really creepy. The aunt was super creepy, very persuasive. Because she kind of seemed like she wanted to get away. They kept saying she was from Wisconsin, but they like checked on it, on her name, and like that family had all died. So she had like assumed some identity. But yeah, she had gotten away from this cult, so it was kind of like she wanted to stay with this family, but they wanted her back, and it's kind of a awkward struggle between what she wanted and what they wanted.
So this weird, gross uncle ends up spending the night at the house, and like he takes off his shoes that have holes in them, which, I get, but his feet are just disgustingly dirty. His toes are like black with dirt, and he ends up, they give him a guest room, but he ends up in the baby's crib, and he took the baby out of the crib and laid the baby on the rug, and he's sleeping in the crib. Like, what?
Those are one of the most disturbing images I've ever seen on TV or film. Like, he's like in this tiny crib, like all curled up like a baby, and it was just like, what? Like, why? This is just messed up.
Oh, God, I know. So I am so curious to see where this story goes. Is Dorothy going to wake up and actually remember and realize what happened to Jericho?
She started to in the final episode, like when she was holding some little girl's doll. She had a few like kind of like flashback type things and then she dropped the doll. So I think she's kind of becoming like awake or like aware of what's happening. And then it was kind of weird. Like the cops came in and said there was an Amber Alert situation. So we thought it was all going down. They were going to get the baby back, but it was some other young girl who was at the party.
Oh, yeah, that was a good twist and red herring, because it's like, wait, what? And yeah, this show just kept me guessing. So guess what? I recommend it.
Plus, a lot of the show is about the husband, like not like feeling anything or like acknowledging what was happening and how effed up it was. So that's pretty interesting. And at the end, he finally like kind of gave in when that creepy uncle dude was down in the basement with him. Like, he actually told somebody all this, like, I can't taste. He couldn't feel anything. He couldn't even feel anything. Like, in the last episode, he was like holding his hand up to the burner just to feel something. Like, yeah, it was getting way out of control.
And I think, too, like, it's a commentary on, mental health and trauma, but also, do you call out your friends when you see something blatant that's not okay, Or do you play along for the sake of their happiness? I mean, maybe we all do this to some extent in our families or our friend groups. And, I mean, that's the moral quandary.
Yeah, Rupert, what was his name? No, what was his name in the show? Julian, Sean, and her, Natalie, like the nurse. They all knew, and they're all feeling super terrible about, because they're like enabling her and like letting her go on this weird journey about not acknowledging the death of her baby. And her dad knew. It was extremely weird. Like the first scene, because you don't know it's a doll right away, and Sean picks up the baby and he just like knocks the baby's head on the crib, and you're just like, what? Yeah. So I mean, it was a journey.
I agree. So, Mark, let's rank the first season of Servant on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you hated it, 10 being you think it's a perfect season of television. What's our scale? I feel like it has to be something gross that Sean cooked. Is it placenta cakes or is it eels?
Eel. I'm going with the eel. Like the eel in the sink, because they had 2 eels. He killed one immediately and they had another one in the sink. It was just kind of like slithering around the sink. It was just disgusting.
How many disgusting eels do you give Servant season 1?
I'm gonna give it 9. I'm gonna give it 9. 9 eels, maybe like part of a tail, like for like a 9.2. I really enjoyed it. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I'm glad M. Night took the time to make this show, and it didn't have like the uber twist that I thought it might. I mean, it had a lot of twists and turns along the way. The cult thing was huge. Oh, we forgot to talk about that cool like overhead shot scene, because like all these people from the cult are outside of their house, and they come in this weird like big group hug thing. It just looked really cool from above. So. But yeah, no, it's a very enjoyable show, and the episodes are only like, I don't know, 30 minutes long, so you can get through the show pretty quick.
I'm also giving it a 9. 9 disgusting eels. That overhead shot you're talking about, there's the single blue balloon from the baptism, and then everyone is wearing black or beige, and it ends up with this like creepy pattern in this circle with the blue balloons just sticking out, and I can't wait to learn more. It's so weird. And what's going to happen? I'm going to tune in 100%. We recommend Servant. Get Apple Plus TV. I mean, I think there's going to be lots of great content on there. We also watched Morning Show, which I recommend. It's not horror, but it was great content.
100% agreed. Yeah. Very entertaining. Got me. Sometimes a show doesn't get me immediately, and I'm just kind of like waning, kind of like looking at my phone and stuff. But this one got me, and we watched it in a few days, and yeah, really enjoyed that show as well. So I recommend that.
Hi, it's Meg's Spooky Book Corner, and I'm so very excited about the title I'm going to talk about today. It may be over 600 pages, but I read it as fast as I could. It's The Living Dead by George Romero and Daniel Kraus. Oh my gosh, you guys. Holy crap. Okay. This is definitely top 3 favorite books I've read this year, if not top favorite book I've read this year. It is epic. It is so well written. It is gory AF, but at the heart of it, you guys, the characters are what are going to just bring you into this zombie apocalypse, and you're going to be so happy that you went there. All right, so I heard about this book, a while back when George Romero died. I heard that, he was working on this epic novel, and he, obviously passed away before he could finish it. And Daniel Kraus, who I have not read anything by him, but now he's definitely on my list of I want to read more. He helped write Shape of Water with Guillermo del Toro, and so, he's the man. he swooped in and saved the day and got this book finished. And I don't know, how much of the book was done, but I am just blown away by this book. You jump into something like this with a lot of faith, hoping that you're going to enjoy it. And oh my gosh, did I ever. So don't worry, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but I just want to give you kind of a taste of what you're getting yourself into. So what are you going to read when you read The Living Dead? Is it worth 600 and some pages? Yes, it is. As you know, I get really excited when we've got characters who we love and believe in and want to follow. And that is first and foremost at the heart of The Living Dead. So many characters. It's very epic. Again, I'll use that word again. It's very much like in line with The Stand or something of that ilk, because you're following quite a few characters. And, right away, you're being introduced to these characters, but you already love the characters that you're introduced to, that you're like eager to get back to those ones while you're meeting new ones. And pretty soon you just have all these people who you're following that you care about, and they're not all perfect. They're very different. Something that George Romero, from the very beginning, when he made Night of the Living Dead, race was something and diversity was something, that was very important to him even then. And that continues to be the case. Every one of his characters is diverse. They range in color, but also there are people that are, excuse me, there are people who are gay, people who have all sorts of different backgrounds. And he treats them all with the respect that an author should treat their characters. They're not perfect, they're complicated, they're interesting. They sometimes make bad choices, sometimes they make good choices. But it feels like a living world. And a big part of that is because of his, commitment to diversity. And that has never changed, and this book is, really proof of that. So what else? We start the book, right sort of when all this goes down. And I'll admit, I've watched pretty much every zombie movie there is. I have immersed myself in the Romero movies as well as others. And it's like, wow, after Walking Dead and everything, is there room in my heart for more zombies? Yes. I didn't know if there would be. But the way this world is so vividly drawn, how could you not just want to go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and be in this universe? The zombies they have some aspects of them that I love from Dawn of the Dead and Land of the Dead, where they sort of start to have a little bit more intelligence. I mean, I'll use that term, lightly, but also, and I don't want to give too much away, but we do actually get into the head of zombies, and we get to experience from their point of view, and that is not cheesy at all. It was very cool. And there's so much that the authors, and I'll say George Romero, because again, this was a commitment that he had in his films. There's so much in this book about society, about collective consciousness, about racism, sexism, and sometimes it felt a little like too on the nose. Sometimes I was like, oh, you could be more subtle about that, but you know what, maybe that's not something you need to be subtle about. Maybe it's not at all. And this book really at its heart is about humanity and about how we can do better, and how we have the ability to make this world a better place, and to see what unites us rather than what, keeps us apart. And that might sound cheesy, but oh my God, in the backdrop of the zombie apocalypse with all these characters you become obsessed with, I'll just tell you, your heart's going to get ripped out and stomped on, but it's going to feel amazing. I promise. And I didn't know, what I was getting into when I started this book, but I'm so glad I read it. It was such a treat. And I just know that, if you're here, if you love horror movies and you love horror books, or maybe if you love horror movies and you would like to read more horror books, this is a great gateway. There is a sense of humor in it. I would compare it to kind of Stephen King's sense of humor. It made me think of him several times. But oh my gosh, what a great novel. I could just go on for days about it, but I want this to be spoiler free. I just want you to know that it's going to rock your socks off. You're going to love it if you're anything like me. And zombies forever. All right, I'll see you in the horror book section.
Until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.